Hello guys! Getting comfy sitting on the floor. I'm actually gonna grab a blanket and get nice and cozy because we are talking today about binge eating. So really what I want to do today is it's become really common knowledge that in order to stop binge eating, we have to stop dieting, but I feel like there's not a lot of resources. And okay, how do I stop the steps that I take to stop dieting to stop binge eating? What do I do there? So today I want to break it down into 3 steps for you, the things to focus on, because this idea of, okay, just stop dieting, we need a little more direction than that. So that's what we're gonna do today. If you are excited about this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, the little bell, all of it, and let's dive into it. So I guess kind of a little bit about my background with binge eating. I was first very restrictive and then I swung, which is very common, swung to the other side and I started binge eating. And I'm not talking, again, I always say, I'm not talking I had 2 bowls of cereal instead of 1. I'm not talking about how I had, an extra, cookie or something like that. I mean binge eating. And I'm not going to go into necessarily specifics because I don't want to trigger anyone, but yes, it's something that I had struggled with a lot, and I felt like I didn't necessarily have a lot of guidance when I was overcoming that, and how do I just make eating normal again? And to be honest, that's why I've made this my career. That's why I've started the society, my membership community, where I teach how to do all this stuff, and that's why I'm making this video for you today. So let's get into those 3 things, but before we do, guys, obviously this is not intended to be medical advice for you. If you do need specific medical attention or advice on anything we talk about in this video, be sure to reach out to your healthcare provider immediately. That's what you want to do. Okay, guys, so the first thing that I want you to focus on, or really that I suggest focusing on, this is stage number 1 in the society. So one of the first things that I teach is I want you to start eating enough overall food. I feel like at first we get so gung-ho and we're like, yeah, I'm gonna eat the donuts, I'm gonna eat the cookies, I'm gonna eat all these things that I haven't been letting myself. And while yes, you can do that, I really think that the first thing we need to do is remove the biological urge to binge. So there can be these kind of 2 factors of wanting to binge. It can be that biological, my body is not getting enough energy, then I need to make sure that I'm eating enough food overall. And there's also kind of that psychological piece to the food that you've been restricting. But I really think for me, and again, this is was through my trial and error of figuring out, okay, what really helped me, what didn't. What really helped me was kind of breaking it in 2 pieces. And I say that with not saying that if you do them both at the same time, that's wrong. But for me, I felt very overwhelmed, and chunking it down into these 3 steps can really help you kind of get there. It just gives you a little bit of motivation. It's okay to dip your toes in the water, guys, before diving in necessarily head first. So if I think there's one thing to focus on at first, it is giving your body enough overall energy and removing that biological urge to binge, because sometimes that's scary enough, right? Allowing ourselves to be I'm still hungry, I need more food. I would so much rather someone take 1 solid step forward and honor that hunger versus feel overwhelmed taking 80 steps forward and then take 85 back. So like I said, I think the first thing is to make sure that you're getting your body to a state where you're not restricting food, you're giving it enough energy. And it's okay, guys, like I said, if you dip your toes in and just okay, I'm going to not worry about breaking my food rules first. It's going to be a feat, it's going to be a task for me to just allow myself to honor the hunger that I'm feeling. So that's step number 1, to remove that biological urge. So then step number 2 would then be to move on to breaking your food rules and making peace with food. So yes, you want to allow yourself to eat the food, like donuts, cookies. That's where kind of those food rules that you think about, right? The foods you deem bad, or I say bad because they're not actually, but that diet culture deems bad, right? You want to go through, and the way that I teach this in society is to first just flush them out, write them out all on paper, and then it's okay. This can be a working list. You don't have to get them all out in one shot, but just get them all on paper and then order them from easiest to break to hardest to break and then work through them. Okay, so that's really what I recommend. Again, we work off, I call it the snowball effect. A lot of people call it the compound effect, but start with one thing, then let it snowball. I know it seems okay, you want me to break my food rules one by one, but as you do this, you're going to gain momentum. That snowball is going to start snowballing faster, and before you know it, it's going to get easier to break your food rules. You're going to break them faster. I'd rather someone take a baby step forward than to never take a step forward. So allow yourself to just get comfortable with the process, gain confidence in yourself, and starting with an easier food rule can be really helpful for that. So that's the way I recommend doing that. But what I also mean by you have to break your food rules and make peace with food is that food neutrality, guys, is more than just eating the food, okay? You can't expect yourself to eat a donut and be okay, my food rule's broken, because there's also the food rule of the morality food rule, which I think a lot of people forget about, because I get emails every day saying, hey, Colleen, like, I feel like I don't totally eat intuitively. I still, have the dieting mindset, but I don't have food rules. Like, I eat all the food. Okay, that's great. You are, you're allowing yourself to eat those foods, but are you viewing them neutrally? Are you not viewing them as bad or off limits or less than another food? And I don't mean that foods are, equal, right? They're not, they're different, but they don't have moral value over each other. So with that, again, you have to ask yourself, okay, even if I'm allowing myself to eat those foods, how do I feel about them? Do I have the morality food rule? Do I view them as bad or unhealthy? Because that is a food rule in itself, you guys. The goal is to neutralize the foods, not just to eat them, okay? And we go over this in way more detail in the society of how do I get there, because I love social media, you guys. It connecting us right now, that's amazing, but it way oversimplifies the process, and it's finding food freedom and learning how to eat intuitively is about way more than just eating a food. And I feel like that's what it comes across as on social media. It's about asking yourself, do I enjoy this food? Is this food satisfying to me? Does it make me feel good in the amounts that I'm eating? And I always talk about this as a learning experience. It's a process of experimenting with something. That means eating the food, different amounts, different types, and reflecting on it. Does that feel good? It's this kind of trial and error process. It's not just one thing, check, I ate the food, I'm done, I made peace with it. It's about so much more than that, okay? But that is one step, and that I, like I said, kind of recommend doing that as step number 2 in this how to stop dieting to stop binge eating, right? So we're kind of with that, giving our body enough energy, focusing on a lot of that biological urge. Then we kind of move on to that like psychological. There is some biological in there as well, but more of that, our beliefs about the food and how that impacts the way that we eat them. And step number 3, I really recommend is to focus on body neutrality. I feel like this is another thing that really gets missed, you guys, is that we focus on just the food, right? We don't focus on what we put the food into. And I think that that's probably the reason we all started dieting in the first place, right? Is in an effort to control our bodies, in an effort to change our bodies, right? And in order to make peace with food, we have to make peace with what we put that food into. Say that 10 times fast, right? You can't expect to make peace with food if the thing that you're putting the food into, you are still trying to control and change. So I think that focusing on that is huge, and something that I talk about a lot, and I was just talking about this in the society, is focusing on body neutrality versus like, woohoo, rah rah, body, everything's sunshine and rainbows with my body, being super positive all the time. Focusing on just that kind of neutrality is kind of a tactic that we use in the society a lot, and it's super, super helpful in just saying, you know what, this is my stomach, or these are my thighs, and that can be a much more tangible step than being like, okay, I'm gonna love these thighs, I'm gonna love my stomach, because that is a lot of friction from where you're at now, not liking your body, to where you want to be to feel neutral about it, right? Or to feel positive. That's a lot of friction. If you take it down to focusing more neutrally about your body, that can feel like a much more easy step. See how I'm chunking all of this down to be like, okay, what is something we can do? What is something that feels attainable, right? That's so big, guys. So essentially those 3 things, so let's recap them. Step number 1, you want to give your body enough energy. Step number 2, you want to focus on breaking your food rules and making peace with food. And step number 3 is focusing on body neutrality. Those are essentially the first 3 stages in the society. So in the society, we have 5 stages that I bring you through to find food freedom, right? And those are the first 3. The next 2 are gentle nutrition, which again, I feel like is something that a lot of people get nervous about implementing, because think about nutrition, we usually think about diets, but it's a super important piece to finding your set point weight, finding the weight that your body wants to be and feels good at, both mentally and physically. It is a very important piece to that. So I feel like too, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I've done all those things, I still don't feel great in my body, that gentle nutrition piece might be what you're missing. So there's that. And then stage number 5 is all about having food freedom for life. So how do I keep this? Because when you get to stage number 5, guys, you have done all this work, and I love to say diet culture is going to be gone, but it's too big of an industry. We have to know how can I keep this? How can I protect this food freedom that I found so that I don't go back to diet culture, so that I'm not influenced by that, so I can keep living this amazing life that food freedom is? That's stage number 5. So essentially those 3 tips for how to stop dieting, to stop binge eating, those are the first 3 stages of the society. I'm also going to link in the description below a quiz that I have for you. It is really going to help you, again, if you're like, okay, I feel like I'm trying this stuff, I need a little bit more guidance. It's gonna be a quiz that's gonna help identify, okay, what's holding you back from truly finding food freedom? There's 3 common things. Either you're what I call an ultra careful eater, you are an all or nothing eater, or you're needing some of that gentle nutrition implementation that we talked about. Be sure to take that quiz. I'll link to it in the description. I have a workbook for each of them to help you guide you through this, because guys, my ultimate goal is to help you not struggle as much as I have. I've turned my mess into a message. I recently heard that and I'm like, that is so good. I love that. So that's what I'm doing with that. So I'll link to all of the things in the description of this video for you. But if this was helpful for you guys, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, hit the little bell to be notified when new videos are uploaded, which is every single week. And with that, I'm gonna see you guys next week with another video. Be sure to follow on Instagram. I'm literally on Instagram stories like all the time. So be sure to head over there if you're not, and I will see you guys next week.